this week, I started thinking about cases that I wanted to do, but I had Jocelyn watch a really good documentary movie series. It's actually was supposed to just be one movie, but it ended up turning into a part 2 and a part 3, and that is Paradise Lost, the child murders at Robin Hood Hills in Arkansas.
Right, on Max HBO. It was really, really good.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that actually Tony started watching it before I even told him that we were doing it. He had watched the whole series already. I thought, wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You must have been sleeping and he was up late at night and turned on that. Because it's dark. It's a really dark movie. And it is extremely... you'd have to watch the movie yourself because, it does show some scenes that are that we're not going to show here, but you'd have to watch the movie to see some of the crime scene.
You mean
footage.
the crime scene, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, so funny when you see these crime scene photos.
Funny.
You're like, funny as in the sense, like, I can't believe we showed that back in the day.
Right. Like, I don't think yeah, I agree.
I mean, and in all reality, what you see isn't it's not really gory. It's just, I think, the thought of it being real. Like, it's not, made up. It's not, you watch Games of Thrones, you see some gory stuff. Here comes my dog.
I know.
And you see some really gory takes. But like, I guess when you're watching this clip on Paradise Lost, you're like, it kind of takes you back because you're like, oh my God, that's actually real. And it's not, like I said, it's not gory. It's just kind of like, wow, that's real.
For anybody, kind of I mean, there's a lot of people that have seen the movie. For anybody who saw it, and the same thing happened to me, and I'm sure the same thing happened to you, you turned it on and it was like, boom, right away. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Is that what I'm seeing right there? And I'm like, oh, and it literally took my breath away. It's just so sad. It is the story of 3 8-year-old boys. And here's a picture of them right here. It is Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers in the middle there, and Michael Moore is on the right. And they are 3 8-year-old boys and that lost their life back in 1993. So I'm going to go through what I want to do today. Let me just be clear on some things. So one of the reasons why I wanted Jocelyn to watch it was because I really felt like it's just so much information that you got to see that movie. And it's pretty much what everybody saw when they first heard about this horrible murder. And then Paradise Lost is what gave it to us. And a lot has happened since then. Like, this
said that.
Oh, it's been going on forever.
There's 3 parts, but I think the last part ends. Well, the first one obviously starts in 93 when it happens.
Right.
But the last video, I think, was 2011.
Mm-hmm. I know it. The first movie came out in 96. And the last movie is, hold on, I have the date, actually. Yeah. It's 2000. You might be right. It might be
2000?
No, the second one was 2000. No, 2000 is the second one, and 2011 is 3. Part 3, Purgatory. Okay. It's called Purgatory.
So we're talking, I'm so bad at math. So we're talking 23.
Me too, girl. Me too.
So we're looking at 13 years since the last movie. So now you're saying some more stuff came out since then?
It's not so much that anything... Well, there's been a couple developments, but what I will say is it is very much in the forefront of people's minds. Once they watch this, people have been hooked on it and they've been following it ever since. And there is a divide on guilt for the teenagers. There are teenagers that are involved with taking these 8-year-olds' lives. And we'll just go through the whole story, but it's so much uncertainty, and there is things that I'm finding that if I dig deep, there's things I didn't know about still, even with those 3 movies. And the movies did leave out some things. They did.
Of course, they always are. They always do. Because I did feel like it was one-sided, but...
Well, it didn't start off that way. I mean, they literally, these two filmmakers were like, hey, let's make a movie about a bunch of, freaky teens. They really went in there thinking that the teenagers that get in trouble for this were guilty. And they just thought it would be interesting to do a movie that involved the Satanic Panic and all that. And they changed their minds. They were convinced. And then that's how they filmed it. They filmed it that way, and they were right. So, but there is
okay.
So here's my goal. This is going to be a series, okay? And the reason why it's going to be a series is because today, part 1 is just going to be like, I'm going to deliver you the timeline and the story the way Paradise Lost gave it to us, how everybody else got it back in 1996. And then what I want to do is I want to start digging and finding all the things that the movie left out, and analyzing that and seeing if there is any truth to any of it. Now, full disclosure here. I lean towards them being innocent. In fact, it is really the first case that got me into true crime. It is the first case that got me into it. I was so addicted to this case. Plus, I thought Damien Echols was kind of cute in a weird way.
No, yeah. No, I could.
There was something cute about him, right?
Oh, yeah, there was. Absolutely.
Okay. So there was something kind of good looking about him. But and so as a young girl, and it is our time. Like we were the same age as them, right?
Well, we were a little younger. They were seniors, I guess, or at least Damien was 17. So we were, I think.
We were the same age as Jason Baldwin, because Jason Baldwin was 16 and Damien Echols was 18. And,
okay.
Right.
I just know a couple years.
Yeah. So wait, what was I saying? So I was saying that I had a little bit of a crush on him. It was the first case that ever got me into true crime, and then there was something else I was going to say. And now
did you see it on TV? Did you see
No.
How'd you find out about it back in the day?
Because HBO was just putting out original movies, and this was one of them, and it was one of the first documentaries to come out. And I think there was by the way, a really creepy documentary on HBO called Meet the Friedmans or something. It's a really disturbing. Oh, it is so disturbing. But anyway, wrong case. That's for another time.
Oh, that's an actual case?
Yeah, it is a case.
Okay.
So, back to these boys. Okay, so all right. So May 5th, 1993. Okay. Yes. What?
No, I was just commenting on Tony's post.
Oh, hi.
Hello. Okay.
So Tony saw this movie. Okay, Tony. So you're good to go on this. Okay. So May 5th, 1993. 3 8-year-old boys, Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore, they go missing in West Memphis, Arkansas. So they were last seen around 6:30 p.m. So all three went to school that day. Okay, that's important to know. Right. They came home, and just like, anyone, back in the 80s and 90s, you would people were more outdoorsy back then, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
We would go out and we would hang out till long after dark, and we would wait for mom to scream out the front door, dinner's ready. And that's how we would know. We would literally hear mom's voice all the way down the driveway, street down, echoing, hey, come on, where are you? Nobody cared. Nobody, safety was not as big of a deal, right?
No. Not in that way. I mean, people kind of trusted their neighbors, and there really wasn't out of towners that would just come and creep in the neighborhood like they could be now. So
right, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, so and while I'm here, let me just show you a little bit. Not that one. Okay, let's show you this one. Okay, so here's a map of the area, and can you see my cursor? Boop, boop, boop. Yeah. Can you see that? Okay, good. Yeah, right. All right. So I know that
it's in the yellow.
it's yellow down. All right, down at the bottom middle. I'm just gonna direct you guys. So down at the bottom middle, A and B is Michael Moore and Christopher Byers' house, and Stevie Branch is in this development, but you can't see his house on this map. Okay, but it's further down, I think, to the right. Okay, so they live there. Lower to middle class kind of neighborhood, a lot of trailer parks nearby. Everybody could walk to each other. I mean, it was just that easy. So anyway, they get home from school. Here's their school right here, Weaver Elementary. They go to school. They all go home. And just like any other day, these three boys who were good friends love to go ride their bikes together. So I remember hearing about Stevie Branch telling his mom, hey, can I go? She didn't want him to go out that day at all. And she had to go to work. And she was like, no, I got to work and I want you home and blah, blah, blah. And he basically said, please, please, please. And then one of the other kids showed up to ask him, can he come out with us? So she finally said, fine, but I want you home by 4:30, I believe it was. 4:30. Okay. Somewhere around 4:35. So she lets them go. So the three boys, they go off on their way and they ride their bikes. And then 6:30 is the last time they were seen near their homes. Christopher's adoptive father is John Mark Byers, and he calls the police at 7 o'clock to report them missing. Neighbors and police conduct a brief search that night, but they found no sign of the boys that night. So then early the next morning, now everybody's alerted to this, but they basically retired because it's so late. And let me tell you something. This is May, and make no mistake, people think it's not that hot in May. But in Arkansas, the bugs and the mosquitoes and the chiggers are out at night. And it's just, you got to like fold and wait till the next day to go for this search. Right. So, a large search effort forms right at dawn on the 6th, the next morning. And then finally, unfortunately and horrifically, around 1:45 p.m., a searcher spots a child's shoe that is in a muddy creek in a wooded area called Robin Hood Hills, which is up where that green is right here. And the main entrance to Robin Hood Hills is right where my cursor is. But where the boys always went is they'd come down Macaulay Drive west, and they would come up this way. And then right at the end there was like literally, it was like a dead end. And there was like a metal like gate with a stop sign on it telling everybody turn around, you can't go. And they would go in that way. Okay. And then the woods were all here. Okay, now it's also important to note that there is a truck stop and a main interstate right here, which is Interstate 40, which I'm not far. Interstate 40 runs through several states, and I'm near Interstate 40. Major interstate, and there's a truck stop, which adds to it a little bit, adds to the mystery a little bit, because truck stops, I mean, how many creepy stories do we know
totally.
about the truck stops? Yeah.
Oh my God. And it's almost like every truck stop can have a story. They're all creepy.
Right. Well, and they get, and then there's the truck wash. Okay. But you know what, just to add a little bit of trivia for anybody who doesn't know anything about trucking. Like I recently went on a drive and, made pit stops at rest areas and stuff. And there's actually showers. There's like showers. Oh, yeah. And truck drivers will come in, get a number, and then sit back in their truck until their number's called. And I remember being inside. I didn't know that. I remember being inside this really like sketchy like convenience store at a truck stop. And I'm standing in there with the girls. We're all huddled together. And my husband's with me. All of a sudden I hear, so-and-so, your shower's ready. I'm like, what? I'm like, what's that about? And Johnny's like, oh, they shower here. And I'm like,
if you ever follow anybody does like living on the road, like it was right during the pandemic, it was really big. People getting kind of like Gabby Petito. They get vans and they travel.
Gabby Petito.
Petito. It's just like, it's kind of like her, like where they would do that if they didn't have you can just go to those rest stops and rent a shower.
Okay, well, how many stories have we heard? First of all, a lot of prostitution happens at truck stops, right? A lot of like, there's lady truck drivers. There are lady.
A lot of them.
There are
lots of them.
Yes, and let me tell you something. They're driving, in their truck, and they're on the CB talking to other, we'll meet at this truck stop or whatever, and they're like, getting in each other's cab and all sorts of stuff. There's drugs going on. It's just, so it is sketch. So anyway, my point in all that. Yeah.
I wonder just for shits and giggles, if anybody knows, Does it bring down your value of your house if you back up to a truck stop like that?
Yes.
I would think so.
I used to be a realtor. Yeah, trains,
Oh, okay.
airports,
Trains,
truck stop. Yeah, who wants to hear ding ding in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll bring down the value. Okay. So it's like if you look at the map again, and this isn't necessarily the greatest picture, but let's look at this one here. Okay, here we are. So here's the house. Here's the development. You see my cursor again?
It is very close.
I lost my red arrow. I used to have a red arrow cursor. Okay, so where, if you guys can see, there's the street. This is where that entrance is, where they would go. Okay, right. So they would walk here, and right here there would be like a pipe bridge right there, and then actually no, I'm sorry, the pipe bridge is here, I believe, and they'd go in here, and this is where, yes, that's what it is. Okay, so the pipe bridge goes across this way. Because it really is. As soon as you walk in off that street there, if you just go just a couple feet further, here's the pipe bridge. But this whole patch of woods, when they're in it, it probably feels like this whole wonderland for these boys. But honestly, it's really not all not that big, you know? So,
right.
And here
is true.
Right. This is where the sneaker and everything else was found. Now, the bikes were found on each side, one on each side of the pipe bridge in the water. And this was all filled with water here.
I was going to say, where's the water? But was it not water anymore? Or is it kind of like a reservoir kind of stream?
No, it was like ankle deep, ankle deep. Like you could get
like
maybe
a creek.
Oh, yes. Like, and it was like up to your mid calf. Okay.
Right.
So that just gives you a little more, perspective on the area. And I'm sorry if we got off on a tangent there. Okay. So, police then soon discover the bodies of Stevie, Michael, and Christopher in a ditch. The boys are found without clothes on. And by the way, because of YouTube guidelines, and because I'm actually happy about the guidelines, because I don't like to say certain words anyway. So they were unalived is the new word. But
unalive.
They were found with absolutely no clothes on them, and they were hogtied with their own shoelaces. Their wrists were bound to ankles behind their back, and their clothing was also submerged in the creek. Some items were bizarrely turned inside out, and 2 pairs of the boys' underwear were missing. The children did show signs of, a severe beating. Christopher Byers' injuries were the worst and especially brutal. This included lacerations and removal of genitalia, which is really when I first saw in the movie, and it's pretty graphic. I was just, whoa, couldn't believe that.
And apparently a clean cut of it, not a jagged,
very
clean swipe cut. Yeah.
Yes. So autopsies later concluded that Christopher died of multiple injuries with evidence of knife wounds, and Stevie and Michael died from multiple injuries, which also included drowning. The investigators initially suspected sexual assault due to the condition of the body, though this has not been conclusively supported by forensic evidence. So I'm going to go through some of the early investigation and the suspicions, okay? So on the evening of May 6th, before the bodies were officially identified, rumors began swirling that the killings might be ritualistic. The gruesome nature of the crime led the police to consider a satanic cult angle very early on. Now, I'm going to pause there. There's a restaurant. I don't think I have it on this map, do I? There's a restaurant nearby. It's a Bojangles restaurant, like a fast food. Okay. I think it's chicken, right?
I've heard Bojangles.
It's like spice. And you know what? I do have a Bojangles, not in one town over. And let me tell you something. That chicken is spicy.
Yeah, good though.
It's like good, but I can have 3 bites and then I'm like, whoo, I can't have any more. So anyway, it was a nearby fast food restaurant, Bojangles. Okay. Right around the same time, the employees report a very disoriented, bloodied man in the restroom of the restaurant. Okay. Police take.
Didn't they say it was a black man? Didn't they say
It was. Yes, it was an African American. And
Okay.
police took a report but did not fully investigate this incident at the time. And it was a potential lead that was later deemed a missed opportunity. So we're going to go back to Bojangles guy at some point, but right now I wanted you guys to know that. And the Bojangles restaurant, let me see, is it there on the map? Let me see if I have it. No, it's out there. Let me see this map. This is the blue beacon. Here's the truck stop. Discovery is right there. Look how close it is to that truck stop.
Yeah, it is.
It is so close. But yeah, Bojangles is not here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think Bojangles was next to the truck stop.
I think it was across. I actually think it was across 40 over here somewhere. I don't know, but I don't know for sure. I'll get back to you guys on that one. Okay. So, anyway, the first person that they are on to is Damien Echols, and Damien Echols is on the left here. Okay. And then in the middle there is Jesse Lloyd Jr., Misskelley Jr., and then Jason Baldwin. Okay. So the two on the outside, Damien and Jason were very good friends. Okay. And JessieMisskelley knew them.
Best friends.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The two on the outside are best friends, but the one in the middle, they knew each other. Like I said, from being such a close-knit community and running into each other every now and then, but they were not like super close. Now, let me just tell you that let me set the scene here. It wasn't really like the greatest place to live. Okay. So what I mean by that is it's one of those towns where, like, unfortunately the area is like everyone's down on their luck. It's
more mobile home communities.
Right. Mobile home communities, not much to do. And they're kind of fun to get their rocks off was just like, playing music and meeting up with each other at night. And and then there's this rumor about this Satanic Panic. And they would go and have bonfires in the woods. And I'm not going to say the other stuff yet until I talk about the Satanic Panic, but that's the kind of fun they had. There's nothing to do. You have a fire, you sit around, they're drinking, there's a lot of
music.
Listen to music, drugs. At the time, Megadeth, Metallica, Whitesnake, these were all really super popular bands. That's what they listened to. And yeah, I mean, I knew people like that in high school,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So,
and I remember those bands being very popular back then too, in the early 90s.
Metallica is amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Okay. So, all right. So Damien Echols on the left, he's 18 years old. He gets interviewed on May 7th as a potential witness due to his reputation for wearing black clothing, being interested in the occult, and prior minor troubles. And I'm going to talk a lot about his minor troubles in another episode, and I'm going to really explore that. And I think you're going to be shocked because I've found some stuff on him more recently and really starting to read up on it that bothers me. Again, I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I just keep that in mind. So,
all right.
Over the next few days, police interviewed Damien multiple times, including a May 9th interview with his friend Jason, who's over there on the right. He's 16 years old, and he has a girlfriend. Echols has a girlfriend named Dominique Tier, and beautiful redhead girl, was dating her and was currently pregnant with his child at that moment.
Didn't he just literally almost just found out? Like, she was only like a month or two.
Right. Exactly.
Happened, right? Yeah.
She was recently pregnant. Right. So, Damien denies, right from the get-go, and never strayed from that, let me say. He denied any knowledge of the murders. Then on May 10th, he underwent a polygraph test at the police station, and the examiner claimed that Echols was deceptive and possibly involved, which obviously further increased suspicion of him. We're going to look into that polygraph on another episode. when we do Damien. Then in mid-May 1993, there was a local woman that lived nearby. Her name was Vicki Hutchinson. She suddenly enters the picture because she's not a police officer, but she's eager to help with the investigation. She's one of these busybodies, probably had nothing better to do, and just kind of stuck her nose in it. So Vicki Hutchinson has an 8-year-old son as well. His name is Aaron, and he was a playmate of the 3 victim boys. Okay. In informal conversations, Aaron, this boy, tells police very wild stories, such as him witnessing the murders at a clubhouse in the woods that was perpetrated by Satanists or satanic cult people. And these claims are very inconsistent, though. They are coming from an 8-year-old boy, right? And they were essentially deemed unsupported. For example, I'll give you an example. No clubhouse that he's talking about ever existed. So they had to write this kid off.
I was going to say, there's a clubhouse. I missed that on the video. Okay, good.
No. I'm giving you info that wasn't on the in the movies
video
as well. Not in depth, but I'm going to be giving you stuff you did not hear. Okay. By Paradise Lost. Okay, so anyway, so no clubhouse exists. But portions leak to the press, feeding the idea that murders were part of a satanic ritual. So it's really this 8-year-old boy, Aaron Hutchinson, that really, not that there wasn't rumors and spray paint on areas talking about people doing the satanic symbols and all that. There was stuff that everywhere in the 90s anyway. But this kid really lit a fire under the police to say, oh, this boy said that. So, and then they just got on that straight and narrow path about it being a satanic kind of crime. So, Vicki Hutchinson herself ends up cooperating with the police by claiming that she had insider knowledge of also seeing occult activities in the area. She said that on May 19th, Damien Echols took her, along with JessieMisskelley Jr., who is the 17-year-old acquaintance there in the middle.
Right in the middle, right.
Along for an introduction to a secret Wiccan gathering in a nearby county. This is what she's saying, this woman. Okay. Echols supposedly bragged to her about killing the boys. Investigators used these claims to intensify their focus more on Damien Echols and his surrounding circle, despite having at that time any physical evidence whatsoever. They just honed in on him. Okay.
What do you know what date she was telling them this?
Yes.
Do you know a roundabout date? Okay.
Yes. It was in the middle of May. I don't have the exact date, but this was happening in the middle of May.
2 weeks later, 2-3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. It was very soon after the crimes occurred. Okay. So then, all right. So she's important, Vicki and her son, Aaron. Okay. And then on June 3rd, 1993, same year, after weeks of mounting pressure to solve the case, police decide to bring in JessieMisskelley Jr. for questioning. Okay, so here's what we need to know about JessieMisskelley. He has intellectual disabilities. He has an IQ of a 72. He gets
real quick, I just want to say average IQ is 80 to 105 or something.
Right.
That's
I know.
IQ.
It's low.
Lower than average. Average is 80 to 102 or something.
Yeah. He has a low IQ for sure. Yeah. And you can kind of tell in some of the interviews when you talk to him, but when you hear his interviews. Okay. Yes. So he gets interrogated for roughly 12 hours. Okay. And it ends up that they only record a short portion of it. Okay.
45 minutes, I think they said. 44 minutes.
That's correct. It's 44 minutes. And he was roughly interrogated for 12 hours. So a lot happened before they hit the record button. That is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So
real quick, because they go over in the during court, they read what that was said on the recording, and what was said on the recording was crazy. So I can't imagine what he had to go through for the remaining 11 hours.
Oh my gosh. Well, here's the thing. So I did put up a short clip of his interrogation, and I pointed out a few things, and everyone can watch that if you want, or we can also play it again when we do a Jessie Misskelley focused episode, and we can play it so that Lynn can hear it too, because I have his interrogation and I listened to the whole thing, and it's like most of it shows me clear coercion, but there are a few things that bother me too. But for the most part, I think he was coerced. So eventually, under heavy leading questions, and when I say leading, I mean leading. I mean, and you're going to hear it, but like one of the biggest things is when they gave him free rein to explain his side of the story when he started confessing after so many hours, when he finally decided to just say, okay, I did it, or I'm in on it, or whatever. Right. He said, so they said, okay, so start us off, in the morning. What did you do? And he started saying that he met up with Damien and Jason for all of this early in the morning. And then he mentions 12 noon. And here's the thing. The three boys are in school till 2:30, 3 o'clock, or whatever time school ends around that time. I think it was around 3 o'clock. So once they were like, oh gosh, he's saying 12 noon, and that's not lining up with what we needed to line up as, they started saying things like, they were like asking him trick. Yeah. Right. And it was clearly like trick questions, and you could hear he's like, and he's like, yeah, I did, yeah. It was like really. I was like, oh my gosh.
And then by the end of it, you can hear the police officer saying like, it was nighttime, right? It was hard for you to see. All of a sudden, now it's nighttime. Like they just kept on pushing him down the clock.
Yeah, and they would make statements. They would make statements, like matter-of-fact statements. So, yeah, it was nighttime. And then, you know what I mean? And it was like, oh, my gosh. Okay. So, anyway, his statement ends up being completely riddled with errors. And he initially, like I said, saying it's in the morning, but after the prompting, changes it to evening. And then he mentions a rope being used when it was actually shoelaces, not a rope. Nonetheless, the confession gives police what they need. And that evening, Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley Jr. are all arrested and charged with 3 counts of capital murder each originally. News of the arrest is met with relief and frenzy in the community. There is tons of footage you can see online. You can watch Paradise Lost. You can go on YouTube. And it's just people congregated around the crime, the entrance of Robin Hood Hills. I always mess that up. There was heavy coverage in Arkansas of this. So there's plenty to watch. And it is so interesting, I remember seeing Stevie Branch's mother just completely collapse on the floor screaming. And it was just like my heart broke for her every time I hear that scream that she does. Were you gonna say something?
Stevie, you said which mom was it that fell on the floor?
Stevie Branch's mom.
What part did she fall? What part of the movie did she fall on the floor?
They replay it in all 3 movies. But if you watch the first one again, as soon as they announce that they found the boys, you can see Pam Hobbs, which is Stevie Branch's mother, shows up at the scene. She's wearing red sweatpants, and she just collapses right there in the parking, not the parking lot, but the street there. And Terry Hobbs, her husband, pretty much is trying to hold her up. Okay, so at a press conference the next day, the West Memphis police chief, his name is Gary Gitchell, and he became famous for this, proclaiming his confidence in this case as a number 11 on the scale of 1 to 10. And soon out,
he gets heat for that one.
He sure does.
Yeah.
Soon after, Jessie recants his confession, claiming he was coerced. But at that point, the legal process was already in motion. So, okay. So I just want to talk a little bit more about the Satanic Panic influence. So, and I remember seeing this when we were in high school. I do. I remember people talking about this and people just like, experimenting with it, getting a Ouija board, whatever. Like some of it was really fake. Some of it,
I could tell you stories about Ouija board, but that's a whole other side thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's bad. Excuse-moi. So, but not only that, like, people wanting to, I don't know, it's a control thing. There was a case back in the 90s where I forgot his name, but he claimed he was a vampire and he like got all these other teenagers to believe that he was like immortal, and like he was literally having rituals where they were drinking each other's blood, and it's just like, and it always happens in the towns where there is nothing to do. There's no movie.
Florida? Was it in Florida?
Actually, I think it was in Florida. I think it was, but
a lot of crimes happen in Florida because there's like nothing to do down there.
There's nothing to do, so their imaginations are going wild, and they're like, that just whatever. It's like not a movie theater, a roller rink, nothing in sight. So they're like just looking for something to do, and they just come up with these crazy stories.
Then they don't have the money. They don't have the money to do all that stuff anyway.
Right. So anyway, Satanic Panic. So this was very prominent in the early 90s. So it was considered like a hysteria. And it was a period when a lot of fear of alleged satanic cult activity was happening, abuse. This was really running high. And the bizarre aspects of this crime, like the victims being nude, the bindings, the hog tying, the mutilation, led the police to jump on the bandwagon of it being satanic.
They had nothing. They had nothing.
Nothing. But you know what? In the beginning, you need to have a blank slate. You need to look at everything as just a straightforward crime. And many immediately assumed that it was the work of a cult. And investigators consulted an expert who, clearly another guy who had nothing better to do but to dive into a field that probably nobody ever wants to touch, and made some money off of it. And I got other things to say about this guy later too, but he just, if you claim to know, if you're one of these people that you claim to know this obscure, unique field of study, and then your head gets big when you're called to the courts to testify for this kind of thing. Of course he's gonna say everything is satanic. You know what I mean? They didn't give it a shot. They didn't give it enough. I think they jumped too quick.
I do too. But I feel like they were under pressure. A month had almost gone by and they had no leads, and then this happened and they just ran with it because it was the only thing that to them that made sense, because they had nothing.
But you've got to be fair and impartial, and you've got to start looking in other places before you just hone in on these boys that we're looking at in our picture right here. I mean, it's just it would make more sense to me that they could, go down the satanic route after they've done some due diligence and looked around a little more, but they didn't even do that. So
no. I know. And honestly, it turns out that they didn't really follow up on getting people's alibis correctly.
Right. No, they didn't. Yeah. So they go ahead and they consult this so-called occult expert, and it's so-called because he really wasn't qualified, and I'll explain that.
He could have been.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Don't you remember? They cross-examined him, and he said, "Where did you get your master's from? And did you actually go to class? Did you actually go to class?" And he didn't. He didn't. He's not like some sort of specialist. I don't think so. Then the police
experience. He's had experience, and he's been doing it for years.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Allegedly. Okay, yeah. So he collected books and drawings from the teenage suspects, And unfortunately for Damien, he was one of these many kids, and I knew people like this in high school that had a couple books that were a little sus, they were a little suspicious, and they were dabbling in that, and it's a curiosity for a teen. It doesn't mean that they're a murderer. Right. But it's unfortunate, right? Because it puts him in even more grave danger as a suspect.
Plus, stupid stuff like he wears black, and people didn't wear black a lot. I think it was just coming out. I don't know. Like, he wore like the long hair, but that was in the 80s too. This is early 90s, so that was in the whole punk rock generation kind of thing. Remember?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if that was still going on today. I mean, black is my favorite color. It really is. I love to wear black, and I'm a Christian through and through. So I'm like, call my husband up. I'm in jail. I wore a black outfit today. So anyway.
Well, where they live, it was
Yeah. So. All right. So they collected books and drawings from the teenage suspects, specifically Damien Echols, highlighting their interest in occult and heavy metal music as evidence of a motive. So you've got, they listen to Metallica. Like Iron Maiden. I mean, my sister was always a Christian, and she loved Iron Maiden, and she had the big Eddie guy on the wall she painted, and it had
really?
You don't remember that? Well, anyway, no. Well, yeah. And remember, we don't say names here, but I have a sister that is very artistic, and she painted the most amazing album cover of Iron Maiden. She literally painted Eddie on the wall. If you all know who Eddie is from Iron Maiden.
Did your mom freak out?
Oh, yeah, she freaked out. She totally freaked out. And you know what? I was ooh, that's bad at the time. But now I look back at it and I'm like, man, that was some darn good artwork. And I'm like, so what? And my husband loves Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden. Yes. Now, but anyway, that's all it takes. Somebody to walk in your bedroom and, you got that guy, a guy with skulls on your wall. You must be a devil worshiper. Well, no.
Right.
No, you're not. But anyway, they were flying with this thought. They were just going to go down this road. So poor Damien was, he had a skull in his room. Now, here's a story you don't know. I don't think it was in Paradise Lost.
Yeah, so, I was going to say, I didn't remember seeing that.
Okay, he had a skull in his room, and the rumor is, and this is going to be another episode, I promise you, if for anybody, because I have people that really do think these guys are guilty. Okay. And they might listen to this, and you can rest assured that I'm going to go down that road and double check all that. But here's what the rumor was. The rumor is that Damien, this is horrible. This is so bad because I'm an animal lover. But the rumor is that Damien killed a dog in the woods, and then and I'm not even going to say how he killed the dog because it is so brutal, it'll make you cry. But and then took the skull and saved it and put it in his room. Now,
so the skull they found, was it a dog?
It was it is a dog skull. Yes.
Or is it supposed to be a coyote skull?
Oh, I don't know. It's a canine. I don't know, some sort of canine.
Yeah, but coyote is a dog. It's the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's in the family, right?
Yeah,
you know what?
And that was really big back in the 90s. Remember that whole Aztec look?
Right, totally. But then so did Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer's bad news. So, I mean, I get to be being alert when you see that. Okay, I get that. But it doesn't mean everybody is. But anyway, so the rumor is he killed this dog and he saved the skull and he put it in his room. Now, the story, and like I said, we're going to go down this hole. I'll even find out, was the skull in his room, I think it was a Great Dane. It was a Great Dane that they claimed he killed. So was it a Great Dane skull? When I do that episode, bear with me. I will do all that, and I'll let everybody know what I found out. But but Damien's side of the story is that him and his father found the skull when they were doing something in the woods, and it had been there, and it actually had it kind of smelled a little bit. It was old and everything, but he thought it would look cool. So he took it home and he cleaned it and then he just put it on his shelf or dresser or whatever.
Right.
But we are going down that rabbit hole when we do a Damien episode. Okay.
And honestly, wouldn't his father vouch for him that he did that?
His father does. His father does. And I have a written statement that is from his real biological father that says this, okay? Because Damien also, and I don't want to confuse everybody because we'll do this in the Damien episode, but Damien had a biological dad and then had a stepdad and took the stepdad's last name. So Echols is the last name of his stepfather, not his biological father, which is Hutchinson. Okay? And in fact, Damien's name isn't even originally Damien. It's Michael Hutchinson, but he changed it.
Right.
Okay. All right. So, So they collected all the books and drawings, highlighted their interest in heavy metal music, occult, and all that. So then media coverage at the time mentioned the possibility of it being satanic as well, which created like hysteria even amongst the entire United States when they're following this case. They're like, oh, okay. So it amplified the community fear, and particularly Damien Echols was portrayed as the dangerous devil worshiper of them all because he wrote dark poems, he listened to the metal, and had a very unconventional appearance. I know that he had a book about, I think his name is Aleister Crowley, which is like really bad news. And I'll go into detail about who that is later, but he's bad news. Okay. It's basically satanic. So this characterization resonated with the panic and is going to end up for sure, 100% influencing the jurors and the people working on the case.
But when he takes this stand, I feel like, and plus in the documentary that Paradise Lost, because it's a couple times that he speaks with the producers.
Yeah,
I feel that he's very descriptive, very calm in his choice of words. He is almost a little eloquent, so
Damien,
he doesn't come off like a punk, doesn't come off like righteous, like how like a lot of 18-year-olds do. So, and I found him to be very mature, but I can also see the cops taking it like, oh, he's a smart ass, like he's just gonna, but I really didn't think he didn't come out with the smart ass remarks. He just, but they're probably thinking, oh, he's trying to get over on us with his sweet talking. But I thought he was very mature for his age.
Yes. So, but FYI, he was heavily medicated during that trial, just so you know.
Okay. But I'm just saying, even when he spoke to producers afterwards, just even though all three of them, like every time he spoke, I just like the way he speaks and that his choices of words and how he explains himself. And he doesn't get heated,
Yeah.
He's very reasonable is what I think.
Okay. Yep. All right. That makes total sense. And again, I had a crush on him. I did. I had a crush on him. All right. So the Satanic Panic created an atmosphere in which the three of them were presumed guilty in the court of public opinion before the trials had even began. And the case came to be seen not just as a murder trial, but almost as a fight against Satanism. Really? I mean, it took on a much bigger thing than just this one guy, Damien Echols, who's like this bad seed, quote unquote. So anyway, that's that with Damien. So pre-trial developments in August of 93, Echols, Baldwin, and Misskelley all pleaded not guilty to the charges at their preliminary hearing. And then Judge David Burnett, I did not like that judge, but he ruled that JessieMisskelley's trial would be separated from the other two who would be tried together. And this is because Misskelley's confession, which he had already at this point recanted, could not legally be used as evidence against Echols and Baldwin. The court also decided that the three teens could be tried as adults rather than juveniles, and he changed the venue. The change of venue requests were granted due to local publicity. So, FYI, just so you know, that even though the confession is not allowed in Misskelley's trial, the jurors had heard it already because it had gotten out. It had gotten out.
That's illegal. That's illegal for them.
I know, but it doesn't matter. They were tainted. The jury was tainted. They had already knew about it. And I know this because a jury foreman does come forward later and says that their primary decision making on this whole trial was based on that confession.
Right.
But even though it wasn't allowed in.
Right. It wasn't, but obviously somebody had to bring it to them to hear. It wasn't like you can go online back then. It wasn't like you could find it that way. Somebody brought it in. Yeah, I think it was the foreman that brought it in.
Sure.
For them to hear.
When I'm going to do one just on Jessie, and when I do the one on Jessie, that'll be one of the things that I will solidify for viewers. Okay, so Misskelley's trial was January to February 94. Jessie was tried first before Jason and Damien. The courtroom was Corning, Arkansas. Opening statements began in mid-January, and the prosecution's case relied heavily on Misskelley's own taped confession, despite defense arguments that it was false and coerced. So they don't play it, but they're allowed to talk about it. So they were making statements. And trust me, the prosecution was sneaking in, even though they knew that that confession could not be listened to by that jury, that the prosecution was slipping in statements used from that confession. And once it was out, it was out. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's messed up. So despite the defense arguments that it was false and coerced, they ended up hearing a lot of the stuff anyway. So no physical evidence tied Misskelley to the crime.
Right. Not only that, I thought it was pretty interesting. I believe it was Kelly's trial, but they had that expert that came on, and he explained how the police leaded him to make that confession. Like, he really is it his trial or the boy's trial? I think it was his trial.
Yeah,
but I forgot his name. It was the guy.
Yeah, his attorney's great. Why don't we go more into detail with that when we do a segment just on Misskelley? Right. Because, but he is an interesting guy. Yeah. Well, by the way,
I'm just saying in the trial they had the defense actually brought a guy and really broke down the parts of the 44-minute recording of how that he was leaded on, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, right. I think that was great.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Before I continue, guys, we don't usually push this a lot. I don't do it enough, but hit the sub button, give us some likes, and share our page with everybody. And yeah, so I'm going to continue. Okay. So, all right. So no physical evidence, everybody. None. Keep that in mind through this whole thing, that there's absolutely none. It's to Misskelley. Okay. So the case.
Not even an eyewitness saying that they saw him at the creek.
Right. That's right.
Like, yeah.
Okay, so the case was built on that disputed confession and the narrative of the cult killing. And the defense brought in experts on false confessions to underscore Misskelley's story, and that how he was put under pressure. And Misskelley did not take the stand in his own defense, and he shouldn't have. I don't think he should have. I don't think he would have done well on the stand.
No. But then again, if they showed how incompetent he is in a sense, but then again, it could just come off. I don't know. I think because even in the interview on those on Paradise Lost, you could tell that he isn't. I don't want to say isn't all there, but you could tell that he's not very educated. So I don't know.
And he had a sweet, and like, you're going to hear rumors about him again when I do a section more on him. But there were rumors about an unsavory side of JessieMisskelley as well. And I will deliver that. But I didn't want to I don't want to stray off of, I want to get through the whole story today.
Right.
But make no mistake that JessieMisskelley has a temper and he has been violent in his past. Okay. So we'll weigh all that and all that. But he did in the movie Paradise Lost, he had a sweet disposition in the movie. Clearly. So on February 4th, the jury finds him guilty of one count of first-degree murder for Michael Moore's death. And that is because in his confession, he had claimed that when he was in the woods and he met them in the woods, Michael Moore got up and started to try to run away while the other two boys were being attacked by Jason and Damien. This is his story, his original story that he confessed to. Had to go chase Michael Moore and bring the boy back to Damien and Jessie. And then what ends up happening is that Jessie says that what they were doing to the boys was so bad he wanted no part of it and he quickly left. But I found some problems with that too. But again, we will get into that when we do Jessie. Okay?
Right.
All right. So he got 2 counts of second-degree murder for Stevie Branch and Chris Byers. And then he was sentenced to life in prison plus 40 years. And Misskelley, who was only 18 years old at the time of his sentencing, went right off the state prison. And he would later appeal, but his conviction did stand. So, all right. So there's that. Now let's move over to Echols and Baldwin's trial, which is February to March 94. This is a joint trial. They are sitting side by side in the courtroom together, something you don't see often. So I thought that was interesting. And if you believe these boys are, it actually doesn't matter. If you believe they're guilty or innocent, it's sad for Jason because the brunt of it was mostly on Damien.
Right, it was.
And poor Jason, if you feel sorry for Jason and you think he's innocent, is sitting there and basically taking the fall and going down the drain with Damien. Yeah.
Almost like, seriously, like, what's that slogan? Like, know the people you hang out with, like you're guilty by association.
Yeah, guilty by association. That's exactly what it is. So this trial takes place in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and they advanced the theory that Echols was the ringleader, just like I was saying, and he orchestrated a satanic ritualistic murder, and Baldwin was simply just an accomplice. They were lacking physical evidence that linked the teens to the crime scene. Prosecutors presented circumstantial evidence. A fibers expert claimed that fibers on the victim's clothing were similar to the ones from Damien Echols' home, but it was not a definitive match. Okay. And then there was a knife from Echols' home, again, not a definitive match. And then a knife recovered from a lake behind Jason Baldwin's house that was suggested as a possible murder weapon. And witnesses testified about seeing the teens all muddy, their shoes muddy, their clothes muddy, and being near the crime scene, but these accounts are later disputed and some recanted. Now, real quick, teaser about the JessieMisskelley episode we're going to do. I'm just going to give you one little teaser about it.
Okay.
In his confession, when he's being...
confession?
JessieMisskelley.
Okay.
When he's giving his confession where he says he's involved in the crime, they asked him about a knife. What kind of knife were they using? And he said it was a pocket knife. And I'm going to play that for you in Jessie's when we do the episode on Jessie. But here's the thing: the knife that was found in the lake was a hunting knife with a serrated edge, and there was no pocket knife involved whatsoever.
And that thing is so big, there's no way you're putting that in your pocket. Like, it's not like this small serrated.
Right.
It's a pretty long, pretty big knife. So that's a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so many things.
So Dr. Dale Griffiths is this self-proclaimed occult expert, and he told the jury that the crime had the markings of a ritual and that Echols' black clothing and writings fit the profile of a Satanist. And the defense argued that there was no real evidence and highlighted inconsistencies. For instance, an absence of blood at the scene, despite the incredibly violent nature of the murders. I mean, okay, where's the blood? There's no blood.
There's nothing. And so apparently, they had very low amounts of blood left in their system, that they were practically drained out. So you know how hard it is to get soil out of just a tile floor? And now you're looking at soil, like, you know, how do you get blood out of soil? How do you filter that out?
So let me suggest this. So
it's terrible.
No, you look great. Doesn't she look great? She looks great. So listen to me. Those injuries would have produced a lot of blood. Yay?
Yes.
Nay. I mean,
Yes.
I think anyone who's listening right now, if you're pro-guilty, pro-innocent, it doesn't matter. I think we can all agree there was a lot of blood involved. So.
Tabby Lynn thinks they're guilty.
Don't. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Lynn, yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'm going to find a different result, but here's the thing. Okay. So we know there's a lot of blood. Tabby, I'm sure you think there was a lot of blood involved in this crime. You saw what was done to these boys. So, okay. So they might say, the other side might say, well, they killed them somewhere else and brought them there. Okay. You expect me to believe that these 3 teenagers would kill 3 children and then drag them to the woods and not have any blood on their clothes? No blood even dragged from any place. Residual blood. Let's say they bled out somewhere else, but they'd still have some blood. It wasn't raining that night.
Right.
Yes, there's a creek. And there's blood can be but it just doesn't, it's a little far-fetched to me.
The creek was dry at the time. So I think it's like one of those creeks that it looked dry on the video.
Oh, no. What I just showed you today, the picture, that's not from that. That's a different times. No, there was water.
On the video, on Paradise Lost, there was water, but it was like a little creek.
Okay.
There was hardly anything.
All right. You're going to thank me for this. I'm telling you, you must have missed something. Because even when they found the bodies of the boys, the cop, when he first found the body, he was walking in water and he hit something with his foot and leaned down and the boy was completely underneath the water, submerged. So you got to go back and watch. No, there's water. And if you're standing, the water comes up at least, I think, mid-calf or up to the knee. No, you got to go back and
stop the water.
Check it again. You got to check.
The video, yeah.
No, I'm telling you, they were in water. So there is water that you can say, but still not to have anywhere else. That just doesn't make sense to me. I think it's, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think below.
It's too clean for a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old and
right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and the other one, it's too clean. It doesn't make it's too. There's too much thought process going on for them to do it.
Okay, so due to the violent nature, no blood. Okay, and then we're in Baldwin Echols' trial right now. They reminded the jurors, of course, of Miss Kelly's confession, which implicated Echols and Baldwin. So they had that. So that confession carried over and hurt them as well. Even though it wasn't admitted into trial due to reliability issues, they still vocally was telling the jury about this confession. So it's horrible.
Well, they didn't know that it got leaked into the jury until I think 13 years later. Like that was one of the evidence they were trying to use as new evidence to open up their case.
Right.
But that's, I think that's, if anybody knew that the jury knew about that, it would have been considered a mistrial.
Right. So, yeah. Miss Kelly was offered, this is important, I think.
Right.
Miss Kelly was offered a plea deal to testify against Echols and Baldwin. Not a plea deal, a deal to testify against Echols and Baldwin, but he refused at the last minute, leaving the state without any eyewitnesses to the defendant's involvement of this crime. Now, that is really a big deal. This is a kid.
He could have gotten out earlier.
Yes, he could have gotten out earlier. He's already been convicted. He's got nothing to lose. He only has to gain at this point by testifying against him. And if you watch the movie, he talks about I'm not gonna lie anymore. No, I'm not gonna do that to Damien and Jason. I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. So that is a big plus for me in why I believe what I have believed all these years,
Right. Okay.
But anyway, so anyway, after a 3-week trial, the case goes to the jury, and then on March 18th in 94, the jury returns verdicts of guilty for both Damien and Jason Baldwin on 3 counts of capital murder. But in the penalty phase, Echols is sentenced to death by lethal injection, and Baldwin, who, lucky for him, is 16 years old and a minor at the time, receives life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Judge Burnett formalized the sentences on March 19th, and the West Memphis Three, as they became, at that point, they were called the West Memphis Three. They were known for that name. Now, at this point, are all convicted, despite the case against them being largely, and let's all agree on this, people, it's circumstantial, right?
The whole entire thing. The whole entire, not one evidence of, and I mean,
right.
The only actual true evidence they have is a fiber that's linked to his household.
Right. Now, I'm a circumstantial girl. You know that. I believe in circumstantial evidence. I believe if there's enough of it, circumstantial evidence is evidence. It's a different kind of evidence, but it is evidence. And there's a certain amount that can sway my mind very easily and practically. And I just wanted to make a note of that, because normally I really do take circumstantial evidence very seriously. Still, it wasn't enough for me. I still have thought that they were innocent for so long. Okay.
I think circumstantial evidence is important, but I don't weigh it as much as hard evidence or DNA.
Yeah. To me, it can be just as, it can be, not always, but it can be just as solid for me. You know what I mean? So that's interesting that you say that. Okay. So, all right. So the trials drew so much local media attention, and
nationwide.
Nationwide, and many in the community felt very satisfied that they were behind bars, and that Damien was going to be put to death.
Well, people believed in the court system, especially in the early 90s. You know what I mean? There really wasn't a lot of. They just felt like whatever the court says, then I'll believe what they come up with,
And then also, and we're talking about at the time of their, their conviction and their sentencing. By that point, only a very small number quietly questioned if the evidence truly added up. That's all going to change very soon. But appeals and growing doubts between 1994 and 2006. There were initial appeals. All 3 defendants immediately filed, just like everybody does. And through the mid-90s, the Arkansas Supreme Court reviewed the cases. In 1996, the state Supreme Court upheld Misskelley's conviction. That was February 19th, 1996. And then later that year also upheld the convictions of Echols and Baldwin. That was December of 96.
Right.
The court rulings...
I just think that the HBO Paradise Lost, I think that the fact that came out made it more nationwide. And, obviously it brought it to you. You were watching
Absolutely, yeah. And that's just about what I was going to go into. Yeah, because that's coming up next. I just wanted to finish this one thought, though. The court rulings rejected the arguments about the confession and trial errors. And in 97, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear Damien Echols' appeal, and basically all 3 of them pretty much thought they were toast. Okay. Doubts about the verdict were beginning to reach the public, though. And then, like you just mentioned, in 1996, Paradise Lost documentary came out. I cannot wait to make a small snippet video just on like a behind the scenes, the making of Paradise Lost. I mean, I'm going to make something that's just 10, 15 minutes to give you guys some facts about it. But let me tell you here, the first major seed of doubt ever planted for these 3 guys came from these directors that made this movie. It was an HBO documentary, Paradise Lost: Child Murders of Robin Hood Hills. It was released in June of 96. Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky had filmed the trials, and all the surrounding events around the trials. And they found themselves embroiled in something that they had no idea. Like, they literally walked into this documentary thinking, hey, let's make a movie about some freaky kids. And it turned into something else. And
yeah,
it's kind of cool, actually, because it was like they didn't know what was around every corner, and they were like, just turn the camera on and then we'll decide later what we think. And then this story unfolded. Now, it is missing things. For anyone listening, I acknowledge that Paradise Lost is missing some things, and I want to address those things, and I will. Throughout this whole series, I'm going to address it. So just hang on to your panties because I'm just doing the outline today. That is it. I'm just like giving the story as people heard it back then. Okay. All right. So those filmmakers, and then it won awards. I mean, they filmed the trials and everything. It aired nationally. It raised questions about the evidence.
It was almost like a reality show. It's almost like, it's kind of like, a live show now. Like you just watching, I don't know, like like the Kardashians. Yeah. It's just them there,
And just even celebrities, after their busy, crazy, famous glam day, whatever, we're going home at night and turning on this movie because everybody had HBO. And many of them put their feet up with their beer or their coffee or whatever, and they turned this on and went, wait a minute. And some of these celebrities decided, I'm going to do something about this. I want to know more about this. I mean, EddieVedder, Johnny Depp, the Dixie Chicks. There's a lot more. They come out of the woodwork. So anyway, it was a critically acclaimed movie, and it galvanized the base of supporters who believed all of a sudden that the West Memphis Three were wrongly convicted. And for the first time, people outside of Arkansas, across the country, and even internationally, started discussing potential flaws in the case. It even created little groups, innocence groups. You hear the Innocence Project and all that. You hear these little groups all over getting together. And then they were talking to each other. They didn't even live in the same states. Hey, let's all meet. Let's all go to Arkansas. And this little group shows up in part 2 of Paradise Lost. So,
and they were from everywhere. There was actually somebody there from Jersey.
I know. Yeah. So back in court in 1999, Echols' legal team filed a Rule 37 petition, which is basically claiming ineffective assistance of counsel, among some other issues too. But Judge Burnett, of course, denies a new trial. I mean, this judge ends up becoming like relentless. He's like not, they needed a new judge really bad, these three, and they were not going to get one.
Well, they didn't get one.
No,
they never did. Until the last one.
Eventually they do. But I mean, what I'm saying is, it was nonstop. Nope, from this guy.
Every time.
And listen, I understand.
You're a judge. How do you not listen? How do you not have an open eye? You're supposed to be blinded, right?
Well, I thought of two things, because I said to myself, why would you be such a jerk? Why would this guy be such a jerk? And I thought of two things. Okay. Try to put myself in the guy's shoes. Okay. Maybe the sensitivity of the matter at hand, 8-year-old boys, the parents, and how they suffered so hard, and just wanting to give them that peace, but not at the expense of innocent people. But the second thing is corruption. Corruption in the police, corruption in the legal system.
Investigation, the legal system. And and 3, I guarantee you, is a little bit of his ego. I say that because I'm sure people came up to him and was like, great job, Judge, on handling that case, and they probably pepped him up to say how great he was. So I think that also had to play with, well, I gotta keep up that image that I make the best decisions and they belong in jail. Everybody else agrees with me,
Yeah. Okay, wait, I love this. 5 says, I believe Stevie Branch's stepfather did this and he did not like Stevie at all. And let me tell you, and I'm going to ask Lynn too, if she agrees too, but so for 20 years, I've always believed that the West Memphis Three is completely innocent. And my theory was always also that it was Terry Hobbs, Stevie Branch's stepdad. And if you're just joining us, I'm revisiting the whole case because there's some things that bother me, and we're going to be doing a series on it. And I'm going to see if it continues to lead me that way. But you're on to something, because I originally thought Byers, but then I eventually switched to Terry Hobbs too. But there's some things about the West Memphis Three that bother me. So we're going to definitely get to those. What's your theory, Lynn?
Yeah, I thought there was some really missed opportunities with Terry Hobbs. I mean, he can't account for 10 hours from like 7:30 to 5:30 in the morning. He can't account for it. Nobody can vouch for him, but yet they don't knock on his door about it. They asked him, and he outright lied and said he's with this other friend. And when they interrogated this other friend, he said no, he wasn't with me, but never went back to Terry Hobbs to finish up confirming. Like, it was just like, why I don't understand.
Apparently some of that stuff has been like checked out and cleared him a little bit on some of these things that we're thinking from the movies. And I'm really excited to look into Terry Hobbs more and see if that is really true, because I am guilty of thinking he was a creep and judging him by the cover and what I saw in the movie. And I don't feel like at my age now that I'm comfortable with just walking around thinking that without double checking everything. So It will be interesting. But yeah, I mean, he comes off shady. Sure.
Yeah, totally red flag, and definitely somebody that they missed opportunity to check out on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So, all right. Did you want to say something else?
No, it's okay.
Okay. So that stupid judge denies them a new trial. And an interesting side note, one of the victim's fathers is John Mark Byers. He's also another character that honestly, by the end of like part one, halfway through part two, I thought it was him. I thought it was John Mark Byers. And he's a strange dude. He's a strange guy. How could anybody, like, remember the scene when he's like in the woods and he's like, yay me, whatever. he's
totally like, he's a lunatic. And anybody who's like that into God, like, you always have to watch out for.
Oh, don't say that.
He is crazy. Anyway, I think the part that made me change my mind about him was when he passed the polygraph.
Yes, that was excellent. But people can like cheat that.
I do. Right. I agree. That's true. But I don't think he could.
Okay. Still though, and the teeth. There's a thing with his teeth. His teeth was not really. He didn't remove his teeth and get the dentures until after. Right. And there was a bite mark, and they can't match it to somebody who got their teeth removed. Right. So that bothered me.
Yeah. Listen, in the video, in the movie or whatever, the documentary, he's having this argument with this team that came from California who are now trying to represent the three. Anyway, so not argument, but they're having a discussion, and they were like, "Well, why not submit your teeth? Why not submit your teeth marks?" He's like, "I can," and he takes out his dentures, the uppers and lowers, and he's like, "Here you go." And I'm like, oh,
nasty. That was gross. All right. Anyway,
and there's like saliva coming off his lip. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. All right. So, so John Mark Byers, so he became a villain in the eyes of many observers and onlookers, and then eventually an alternative suspect. Of course, let me say he was never charged. Byers had maintained his innocence from the get-go, but the very shift of suspicion indicating a growing doubt about the teenager's guilt, So then Paradise Lost 2 comes out in the year 2000, and HBO puts this out as a sequel, following more developments in the case. And then all of a sudden there was the Free the West Memphis Three movement, and it cast even further doubt on the convictions, and it actually really honed in on John Mark Byers. That's the episode where it's like, it's John Mark Byers. That's who did it.
Yeah. Do you have a picture of him?
I didn't pull one up for it, but
Okay.
I'll get one.
Okay.
I'll get one. At
Yeah.
the end. I'll show a bunch of pictures
Yeah.
at the end. Okay, so anyway, because he was a perfect little villain for them to attack because he had the odd behavior. And they had this new evidence, like that knife. They questioned him about a knife, and then there was some blood on his hunting knife. And I guess, they were just like questioning about it. Do you remember his face on the stand? He was like, yeah, so it's like shaking his head. He was like, I was hunting.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
I know, right? I don't recall. That's the way he talked. He would shake his head like.
And I thought about it during the day.
God bless him. God bless him, because I actually really do, like, flat out, I don't think it's John Mark Byers. And he ended up being like a really, like, I mean, I think he had some hard times in his life, and I think maybe he was a little rough on the kid. I think he was, the kind of guy that takes a belt to his kid. Maybe, did some drugs. Maybe was a little abusive to his wife. I don't know. But I think overall, he had a good heart. I think he really did love the Lord. And it was sweet to hear him sing. It was sweet. Okay. It was.
What did five cars say?
If you watch the deposition. Go ahead. You read it.
If you watch the deposition of Hobbs in his defamation case against the Dixie Chicks. Oh yeah. He was weird and said some strange things about Pam and getting back to her for kissing some man. Oh, you're right. Yeah. So apparently
I watched it.
Terry Hobbs, they had gotten into an argument before the death of the child because apparently she was running behind his back.
Yeah.
And then it happened again, right? The same day as I think the same day as he went missing.
Yeah.
They had an argument.
Like this video right now. Give us a like and subscribe. And yes. Okay. So, all right. So, John Mark Byers. So I'm glad we're talking a little bit about him because, that's pretty much all of Paradise Lost 2 is, and even Damien was like, all right, jumped on the bandwagon of blaming. And they were, if they're truly innocent, I'd be looking for every single person too that I could find that's a weirdo. Because if I didn't do this, somebody else is going to take the blame. So anyway, so there's all this doubt on John Mark Byers, and around this time, websites and support groups started to spring up, and ordinary people, legal experts, celebrities, they begin to speak out. Okay, and then there's benefit concerts.
They're raising a lot of money.
Raising all this money is coming in, right? And then they're visiting. And they're visiting mostly Damien. They love Damien, these groups. Yeah. They just, and Damien was like going through like losing his eyesight and his health was failing. Like something about his eyesight. That. Yeah. I have his book, I read his book. It was good.
Oh, wow.
And I read it like 10 years ago or whenever it came out, 7 to 10 years ago. Then albums were organized. For example, there was a 2002 compilation album called Free the West Memphis Three. And it featured lots of artists in support. And the case was basically transforming into one of the nation's most famous alleged wrongful convictions. Okay. So then continued battles in 2001 through 2006, okay? The trio's defense teams, kept fighting in court, and then various motions were filed for new trials or evidentiary hearings. And in 2001, Echols' attorney filed a state habeas petition citing his mental health history, which was ultimately denied. A notable book, Devil's Knot by Mara Leverett, which was written in 2002, thoroughly examined the case and strongly suggested a miscarriage of justice as well, for further informing the public and leading everybody to believe that these guys need to come out.
Wow.
So 2005, after years of the back and forth going on, the Arkansas Supreme Court again declined to grant Echols a new hearing.
Same judge.
Same judge, right? I believe. Yes. Despite the setbacks in the court, though, the Free the West Memphis Three movement, such a tongue twister, it kept growing, and then high-profile supporters had now joined the cause officially. Like, they were donating money, like Metallica was, EddieVedder, Natalie Maines, Johnny Depp, and even filmmaker Peter Jackson got on board, among others, publicly advocating for re-examining of this case and then putting all their riches towards how much it would cost to look into things. Okay. So after more than
and the money went to all the, so when they were finally granted, I forgot what the official name was, when they had 4 experts come on to talk about to talk
at
about
that
the
panel,
DNA, right, and about the bite mark, but they cost a lot of money because they were very reputable. What do you call them? What I just called them?
Very reputable experts.
Yes,
expert test, right?
Yeah, I have their names.
Oh, they had the best of the best. The one guy was like Cyrus. I know what you're talking about. And they had Michael Baden too, didn't they? Did they have Michael Baden?
They had the guy that Richard Sorin. He was the guy that testified in the Ted Bundy case.
Right.
So he was the key witness in the Ted Bundy case that he spoke of. He's an ontologist, forensic ontologist, and so he spoke about it. Then they had Weiner Spritz or something.
Warner Spritz. Werner Spritz.
Right.
Yes.
So apparently,
can I not say that word?
Yeah. Old guy who is known to be the Bible of forensic. He's known as knowing the Bible of forensic ontology.
Okay, can we just say what a bunch of lucky ducks these 3 are, because they, like, most people are rotting in prison that are like, I'm including people who are innocent that were convicted,
everybody in jail is innocent. You know that.
Right.
And besides that, but yeah, okay.
Yes.
But,
I'd be like, if I was Damien, I'd be like, man, or any one of them 3, I'd be like, man, we scored. Like, we got celebrities giving us money and stuff. I mean, they really got lucky. And I will say later in my segment of Damien, I feel like Damien got let it get to his head a little bit, but that's a whole other thing.
Okay.
No, you don't know him now.
Right.
All right. I don't want to talk bad about him because I haven't decided yet what I'm doing about what my thoughts are, but I do still think that they're innocent, but I want to go down the road and, like, force myself to, like,
right. Well, Damien says in the video that he says that the producer's like, well, thank you for letting me do this. He's like, no, thank you for, actually producing this for us and taping us, because he's like, I didn't know this is a great way to get our story out, because the media was so one-sided that he felt like that he had to do this video. He had to say yes to HBO just so that they can see their side of it. So
yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, sure. Who's not going to be grateful for that, Right. So Damien now in his 30s at this point, and I'm talking about, this is still between 2001 and 2006. Yeah. Now in his 30s, is still sitting on death row. Jason Baldwin and Jessie had, like, a formidable coalition pushing for their freedom, insisting that new evidence would prove their innocence. And, yes, Misskelley did recant, but he ended up, from that point on till this day, has always claimed he was innocent and he was coerced, and that, yeah. Okay, so new evidence from 2007 to 2011. There was DNA breakthrough testing. Right. That was in 2007. Major turning point with advanced DNA testing of the crime scene evidence. In 2007, again, thanks to the technology and relentless efforts by the defense and previously collected biological evidence, that was tested for DNA. I'm sorry, that sounded like a big cluster. They had previously collected evidence that was finally able to be tested for DNA.
Under this new DNA test
right.
form, yeah.
So the results were significant. None of the DNA recovered from the crime scene, clothing, ligatures, etc., matched Echols, Baldwin, or Misskelley. However, investigators did find DNA that appeared to come from others. Okay.
Actually, did we know who it came? Didn't they find something off of Terry Hobbs?
You always say something literally the second before this, the next thing I'm going to say. I'm like, what the heck? Well, it shows you're listening. It shows you're listening. It shows that you're following along and paying attention. All right. So, yes, there was a hair found that was a hair found tied in one of the shoelaces, not rope, shoelace knots that was used to bind a victim and was not inconsistent with Terry Hobbs, meaning that it matched the mitochondrial DNA profile of Hobbs, the stepdad of Stevie Branch. And then another hair from this is a big one. Another hair from a tree stump that was near the bodies was consistent with Hobbs' very good friend, David Jacoby. Now,
wow, I didn't know that.
I have an episode you and I are gonna do on just Terry Hobbs, and there is a timeline of his events that we're gonna do a whole episode on, and then you're gonna know a cast of characters that he was hanging out with. And I don't want to give it away, but I'm going to give you a teaser. There's a teaser that him and some of his men friends had some unsavory hobbies.
Oh, wink, wink.
Wink, wink. It's a rumor, but I'm going to find out if there's any truth to it. So we'll do that. So make sure you're all subscribing so you can, if you don't like this video, at least you'll like one of the other ones if you want me to focus in on something else.
Somebody particular.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So, well, yes, true, because everyone knows this case, right? So I apologize. It's boring when you see the same stuff over and over again, but I promise you, I'm going to pick it apart, and then you can pick which video you want to watch that maybe something you've never heard before. All right. Now, the findings did not conclusively prove who committed the crime, but they strongly suggested, obviously, that it's somebody other than the three you're looking at on the screen.
One of the experts that came up for the defense, all of them said that the bite marks didn't match their bites. These three boys.
Right.
Damien.
Absolutely.
Kelly.
And again, there's going to be there's stuff about wildlife in the water, the turtles and stuff too.
Right. I know, but I was saying they think it was a bite mark, but even if it was a bite mark, or obviously the prosecution side said it's not a bite mark, defense says it is bite mark, and the defense is saying not only is it is a bite mark, but it doesn't even match these three boys.
Right. So again, we're further along on the timeline, and still at this point in the timeline, there is zero physical evidence tying the three convicted men to the scene. So far, so good on me thinking they're innocent, but we'll get there. When this information emerged, it further eroded public and legal confidence in the convictions. And then even John Mark Byers, who was once vehemently supporting the prosecution, publicly changes his stance. Yeah. So in 2007, he makes this big announcement, and boy, does he love to make his announcements, right, on the news. He's just like, free the West Memphis Three.
He's like this 6'5" guy. I don't know if he's that tall, but he's like so tall.
He's a big old teddy bear. Weird guy, but you grow to like him a little bit. There's something kind of cute about him. So anyway, he publicly changes his stance, and he announces he believes now in the West Memphis Three, and that they were innocent, and that the real killer is still out there.
Right?
Yeah.
And the real crime is that they're not looking for them.
Exactly. Right.
And he's dead.
And everywhere you ever notice, whenever there's cameras at this point, there's John Mark Byers standing there. So police, he would lurk even from the beginning too. He would just lurk and walk around. with his loose teeth and just walk around and like, you're never going to forget me. I'm never going to go away. So
he's that character.
He is. And I grew to like him. So police and prosecutor response at this point, in light of the new DNA results, the police interviewed Terry Hobbs in 2007 about the murders. And that was the first time, 2007. Okay, when did these murders happen? 1993. 2007 is the first time they
14 years later.
They ever questioned him. They never questioned Terry Hobbs until 2007. Like, what is wrong with you?
No, they did question him the first time.
No, this is the first formal questioning ever.
Formal. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
maybe
formal. Yeah.
Yeah, standing outside in the street and Channel 2 News or whatever walks up to him and asks him a question. Maybe the police is nearby, but he never got an actual interview. That's a serious problem. This is the stepdad. And there's a timeline for the stepdad. And when we do Terry Hobbs, we'll talk about the timeline too. I mean, he was around and neighbors saw him going down the street or something, calling his kids. We'll get into it. Trust me.
Right.
All right. So he denies all involvement at his first formal interview. And he points out that the hair evidence was only circumstantial, which is true. Right. Let me say, he lived with him.
Same house.
Exactly. Yeah. He lived with him. Yep. And the hair could have gotten on his stepson's shoelaces through routine contact with his stepson. And nonetheless, Hobbs' potential link to the scene still ends up raising the eyebrows, especially giving aspects of his own history. So family members will later attested to him having a lot of past violence in his life. Meanwhile, the county prosecutors still remain publicly confident in the original convictions, but behind the scenes, this case, the foundation of this case was just cracking. Okay. So in 2007 to 2010, the revelation of the new evidence energizes the support movement. Numerous celebrities, again, amp up pressure in Arkansas. In late 2007, Natalie Maines speaks out at a rally implying that Terry Hobbs is involved. And this leads to Hobbs filing this lawsuit, a defamation lawsuit against her.
She's from the Dixie Chicks as well.
Right. She's from the Dixie Chicks.
Right.
This lawsuit ends up getting dropped. So in August 2010, a high-profile benefit concert was then held in Little Rock, which had like EddieVedder, Patti Smith, Johnny Depp. They were all there and others to keep the case in the public eye. And the goal was to fund legal battles and urge the state to grant a new trial. Made tons of money. Legal motion and Supreme Court hearings happened then. The defense files a motion for new trial based on the DNA findings and other evidence of unfairness, such as alleged juror misconduct, which had surfaced that a juror in the Echols-Baldwin trial may have discussed the case beforehand and brought Miss Kelly's inadmissible confession into the deliberations. And that's what I was referring to before. The jury had already known about the confession.
Right. So they were able to prove that by, because I guess that because when you go through jury, whatever notes that you had, that stuff gets all sealed.
Right.
And apparently they were able to open it or access the this paperwork or the juries, and on most of them they had crossed out, because it's a pros and cons section, and a lot of them crossed out like the second to the last pro, but so there's some people who didn't, and in that line was confession, Jessie Kelly's confession, taped Jessie Kelly's confession. So that's how they knew that they heard it and they shouldn't have.
Right. Okay. Right. Hey, guess what? I got an idea. If you think the West Memphis Three are innocent, give us a thumbs up on the like button. Wait a minute. Wait, no, hold on.
Because Tabby thinks that they're guilty.
No, because I was just going to say, if you think they're guilty, give us a thumbs up right now. Hit the like button. All right. Anyway, the state's highest court unanimously ruled that the trial court must reconsider the case, though, in light of all new evidence. So DNA results, witness recantations, like Vicky Hutchinson, who recanted everything she said before about going off that one night with Jessie and Damien and talking about, the Satan stuff. Also, the juror's bias was an issue too. So this was essentially a chance at a retrial, or at least a hearing that could overturn these convictions. It was a huge victory for the West Memphis Three. So a hearing was scheduled then for late 2011 to determine if a new...
December.
I don't know if it was December. No, it was not. It was August. So a hearing was scheduled for late 2011 to determine if a new trial would be granted. So the Alford plea deal happens August 2011.
That's what I'm saying. The original court was supposed to be December of that year, but then they called court in August.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is I was only going by when things actually occurred. I didn't have December at all in my timeline. Maybe that was the original date, but an Alford plea deal is drawn on August 2011. So and it states, before the evidentiary hearing could take place, which was what you meant, probably in December, okay, an unexpected twist occurs. I mean, out of nowhere, rather than go through that whole new hearing. So obviously they were afraid because they knew that their case was like falling apart, right? This whole thing was falling apart. No, I don't think they would have ever agreed to do I'm talking about the state of Arkansas. I think the only reason why they agreed with what's about to take place, which I haven't even said yet, what's about to take place, they only agreed to this is because they didn't want to get to that evidentiary hearing because they knew they were going to lose. It was looking bad for them.
I don't think they thought they were going to lose. I think it was, at least 4 to 5 months until they even had that hearing. And then they had to wait probably another year to actually have an actual court on it. Let's say they did get it. So you're looking at them staying in jail for like another 2 years at bare minimum. So I think they were just like, this is our way out now, and let's not roll the dice.
Until I think otherwise, that they're not in, until I think, if I get swayed that they're guilty, then I might change my mind about this. But right now, I think up to this point that they are innocent. And with that thought in mind, it makes me think there is corruption in Arkansas regarding this case, and that what they did with this whole Satanic Panic and jumping the gun on it, I think is so. I think there's a level of embarrassment from the state of Arkansas, and to have to face that and go through this whole evidentiary hearing and hear all the stupid things that they did. I think they were like, let's just get rid of this one. Yeah, that's what I think.
Because it got a lot of airtime. When they had the benefit, they had a lot of money now.
And they were about to be exposed. I mean, what else would we have found out if that hearing had still happened? You know what I'm saying? Right. For them to take Alford plea, to agree to this Alford plea. Let me say what that is first.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Okay. All right. So, so rather than go through the hearing, which definitely could have exonerated them immediately and potentially, embarrassed them, they decided to compromise. So in a rare arrangement, the defendants were given a chance to enter what's called an Alford plea. So under an Alford plea, they formally plead guilty to the murders while still asserting their innocence. It's a little confusing. It sounds like you're saying I'm guilty, and you are, with your mouth, you're saying you're guilty. But by law, that plea of guilty still allows you to maintain and assert your innocence. Right. So this would allow the state to technically uphold the convictions, yet free the men based on time served. So after considerable deliberation and with Damien's death sentence on the line, because this was actually discussed amongst the three guys, and Jason Baldwin had a problem with it. Okay. Jason did not want to plead guilty. He just kept saying, I don't want to say guilty. That's like saying I'm guilty and I'm not guilty, which is actually pretty telling for his innocence, because the fact that this guy who's been sitting in jail for so long,
the longest actually.
18. It was 18 years, I think. 18 years and a couple months. They're sitting in there for 18 years. And you have a chance to walk free tomorrow. And all you have to do is say, I'm guilty, even though you're allowed to maintain your innocence, and you don't want to do it for the principle of not saying that you're guilty. For the principle of having to say the words guilty when inside you know you're not, right, is pretty like the moral compass of this guy is pretty good, right?
Yeah, but not only that. I think the unfortunate thing is when they gave up by saying, I plead guilty, but even though I'm innocent, blah blah blah, they gave up the ability to sue the town or Arkansas for losing 18 years of their lives.
Yeah, right. Right. They wouldn't be able, right. You can't come after them. Yeah. So the only reason why this ended up going through and the Alford plea was, because all three of them, by the way, couldn't just be one. All three of them had to do it. Right. The only reason why this happened was because they turned to Jason and they said, well, you guys have life and Damien is going to be killed. And if you don't agree to this, Damien could end up getting executed. And for that reason and that reason alone, Jason Baldwin saved Damien Echols' life. That's the way I look at it.
They both did because Jason
saved his life. No, because
they both did.
They didn't both, because the other two I had said they'd do the Alford plea. Jason was the final deciding factor. So it was Jason that saved Damien's life because the other two were ready to go on it. So I look at him as a hero in a way, Yeah. But then recently I heard some bad stuff.
Did you? Oh, God.
I did. I'm hearing some stuff, and there's some stuff I got to look into that I didn't even know existed, so I'm going to have to do that. Anyway, we're almost done.
Okay.
So they're released. Okay, the West Memphis Three are released after this Alford plea. Damien Echols was 36 years old when he walked out of there. And he said it was like stepping into a new 36. And it was like stepping into a brand new world. Family members of victims had mixed reactions. Notably, Pam was Hobbs, but now it's Pam Hicks. Stevie Branch's mother and John Mark Byers, Christopher's father, both stated that they stand for Echols, Baldwin, and Misskelley now. They believe that the three of them are innocent and that the real killer remains unpunished. Other parents, though, like Todd Moore, Michael Moore's father, remained convinced, still does. The original verdict was correct. The case now is 2 decades old, and so much has changed. We got to do an episode just on what their life is like now. But just as a teaser, Damien, had this girl, and I never mentioned her. I never mentioned her, but there's this.
Just thinking that
I know. Well, that's part of his story. That when we do his episode, that's why I pretty much left it out. I wanted to blow through the thing, but he does have this girl that reached out to him. The whole prison pen pals, and they ended up falling in love, and she was waiting for him when he got out. So she and him got on this crusade with the celebrities. The celebrities were really behind Damien. When he got out, I'm sure he made a lot of money. They moved to New York for a while. He still does the occult stuff. He's into the whole, it's called high magic, and it's all meditation and I think Buddhism, that kind of a thing. All spiritual crystals. Yes, I believe it is a part of it's the occult. He says
it's their type of religion.
Okay, just so you know, today, Damien Echols openly talks about him being involved in the occult.
In what cult?
Occult. OCCULT, the occult. No, Damien is very open about it, that he dabbles in the occult, and he always has. And he's saying that doesn't mean I was a murderer. The occult can be many things. It could be tarot card readers. That's an occult activity.
Okay.
Anyway,
so it's not a negative thing.
Nah.
You're not saying it in a negative fashion.
As a Christian, I find it negative, but I also don't think they're murderers. Okay.
I think a sorority and a fraternity is a cult.
It is.
So we all have our own definition.
It absolutely is. And I'm not saying cult. You're not hearing me. It's OCCULT, the occult. It's different. Oh, right. Okay. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So anyway, he had a very successful couple books. He's had a biography on his story through prison, and he also wrote books about mind over matter, meditation, positive thinking, that kind of thing. He's like a guru now.
Right.
And he's gone on to have a lot of success. I don't think he's without problems from being in prison that long. He does struggle with social anxiety, and but he does give interviews, and he's living life and carrying on. His family life is really interesting, and also, currently, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
I'll say Jessie last because that's the saddest one for me. Jason Baldwin got like a law degree when he was in prison.
Oh, wow.
Jason Baldwin is very vocal. He's on X. You can talk to him if you wanted to. Just go on X. You can speak to him. He'll speak to you back.
Wow.
He talks to everybody. He's also he goes on podcasts all the time as a guest. He also speaks to, he's really, probably the most active on trying to clear his name still till this day. The saddest part of this story is JessieMisskelley. Do you remember the girl that was in Paradise Lost, the first one he was on the phone with that he was messing with?
Yes.
His girlfriend. Well, you can go when we hang up here and you can go look it up. But there's an interview with her where like he had gotten out of prison. They had already been freed, and the news station showed up at her door or something to see like what her connection was with JessieMisskelley today, and she like badmouthed them in the sense not that he was he was responsible for the crime, but she was like, he didn't do anything with his life. Damien and Jason got out and they made something of their life, and Jessie just doesn't leave his house and he won't do anything. And it's just, apparently he's just very secluded and struggling, and we hear the least about him.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for him.
He goes on X though, but he does go on X?
No, this is JessieMisskelley now.
Oh, okay. So Charles goes on X. Jason goes on X.
Jason is on X, yes. And actually Damien is on X and on Facebook and all that, but Damien is like famous. Damien he has an enormous following. And he can pick and choose his interviews, and he probably gets paid and all that stuff.
Right. But Jesse, he already was a very shy kind of kid to begin with, and kind of kept to himself in a sense, not in a weird way, but just because I think the way he is, but not, and I don't think socially awkward either. I just think that he really was into speaking to his father every week. You know what I mean? Like I think he has that little bit of I don't know.
Can I just say, no, I think you're getting them confused. The one that was speaking to his dad was Jessie. Right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I'm talking about Jason. I thought you were talking about Jason. All right, I got confused. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jesse's dad was in Paradise Lost, but Jason Baldwin did not have his dad in his life. He just had his mom. And I'm gonna visit him too, because I'm telling you, there's some bad stuff about Jason that are rumored around, and I want to find out if it's true or not.
Oh, he looks like such a good kid.
He does. I'm telling you, I've believed all three of these guys are innocent, and I still do. But I'm like, there are documents I have to read. There are documents we have to read. There are documents that I want to share. There are like police reports that we can read. There is a lot of things that we can look into that a lot of people don't even know about. And I just want to go down that hole and see if I still think they're innocent when we're all said and done. Right? Okay. I probably will, but we'll see. But I do want to thank everybody who stayed on with us and listened. I know it's a repeat, but I wanted to get the story out there so that we can get all down to the good stuff after this. So part two is going to be Damien Echols, and I'm going to go in deep to this kid's past.
Yeah, we got to.
We're going to talk about his history, the stuff. Yeah. Because you know what? We have a right to know. You want to clear your name and everything. So let's double check and cross the T's and dot the I's. So, right.
But and if you can, I would watch the documentaries on HBO.
Oh, I'm sure most people have. Yeah. But if you have not, It is not only interesting and a like a really twisty turny type of crime, but the documentary is like award winning. It is so good. Warning though, it's graphic.
Okay.
It is
good, but it's 1993 good. It's not as good as nowadays. So I wouldn't expect that. I wouldn't expect like that greatness.
Movies suck. Movies suck today. I don't like movies today.
I'm not talking about movies. I'm talking about documentaries.
I don't. Honestly, I disagree on that one. I think it is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen, and that's in comparison to what comes out today. It is that well done. So yeah. Anyway,
issue with old stuff.
Give us a like, y'all. Give us a like. Subscribe to the channel. Share this. You don't want to miss our next episode on Damien Echols. It's going to be a good one, and I'm going to really expose.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It will.
Good. All right.
All right. We love you guys, and we will see you on Monday night. We doing Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
I'm getting these all confused. All right, we're doing Monday night. We'll see you Monday night.
Monday late.
Right, but I'm probably not doing Damien until Friday.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the hosts and guests. All individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.